For the last several years, I have been a very sad witness to our deteriorating lakes. They are dying one by one, and the main cause of their death is pollution. I have myself seen around 25 to 30 years ago that the condition was not as bad. They were cleaner, they were more beautiful. And I have been always comparing these lakes, these dying lakes, with the lakes in Britain, in the Lake District. Recently, in a discussion, one of my friends told me we do have such lakes in our mountainous areas, but most people don't know about their existence. And one of them is situated in the territorial limits of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, the Pangong Lake. But most people don't know about it. I went about asking my acquaintances, students, teachers, colleagues, and most of them did not know anything about it. Far from having gone there, they didn't have any bookish knowledge, theoretical knowledge about the existence of such lakes, until I met a friend, a very distinguished geologist teaching at the University of Kashmir in the Department of Geology, Dr. Rakesh Chandra. And it was a delight to discover from him that these lakes do exist. Can you throw some more light, geologically speaking, on Pangong Lake?
The altitude of the Pangong Lake is about 4,500 meters, and geologically I count for the height that it's being a part of Tipton Plateau, and Tipton Plateau is considered to be the roof of the world, being the highest plateau on the surface of the earth. Himalayan mountain range is the earth's most impressive and spectacular example of geological architecture. These mountains are formed by the continental collision between Indian plate and Eurasian plate about 55 million years back. Now, regarding the topography of the area, this mountain range is sculptured by intense denudation by the combined process of fluvial incisation and glacial abrasion. Now, regarding the Pangong Lake, you can see from the picture from the satellite imagery, this is the Pangong Lake. Pangong Lake is situated to the more north of the Himalayas, being considered as a trans-Himalayan system. Now, this lake, like this, here, is a part of isolated patch of ice masses or glacial lakes, being situated at a Tipton plate. It's not being a part of Himalayan mountain range. They are having its own identity as a Tipton Plateau. The enormous height of this lake is about 4,500 meters from the mean sea level is because of the continuous convergence of the Indian plate below the Tipton plate. That's why the height of this area is to that particular altitude. Now, regarding the tectonic of this area, the Pangong Lake is situated to the north of Karakoram fault that is running from northwest to southeast. This lineament, straight line along the cursor, demarcates the boundary between the Indian plate and the Tipton plate. Now, this along this Karakoram fault, the movement is strike-slip, along which this particular block is moving toward this side and this block is moving toward this side. Because of the offsetting over here, the Chashul volcanic belt abuts the lake that impound the southward flow of the water of Pangong Lake towards the Indian side. So that's why the outlet of the lake is not present, and because of the continuous evaporation of the landlocked lake, the enrichment of the salt leads to brackish nature of the water towards the south side, whereas towards the north, the most of the water inlet is from the melting of the glacier. So that's why it's being more fresh towards the Tipton side.
So a layman wonders at the sheer magnitude of the lake, a very big lake at such an high altitude. How has it come into existence geologically?
Geologically, we say it as a geomorphologically. Geomorphologically, this represents a glacial lake that was the remnant of the last ice age. This is the part of the dead ice that couldn't melt at that time, and during that time the Himalaya was being uplifting as well as the plateau was also uplifting. That's why this particular lake couldn't melt out. Slowly that area was being surrounded by the land areas, and it was being remained, the water was impounded in that particular landlocked areas.
What does geology tell us? Can they last, these lakes, or does geology tell us that in future, distant future, let us say,
see,
we
lakes
will lose
mainly losing of the lake is associated with the silting. If we have been getting very high amount of silting to the lakes, slowly it will shrink. And another is being the infeeding. If you have been getting continuous amount of water from the melting of the glacier adjacent sites, we have been getting the water also. So regarding these lakes, slowly it will be shrinking, because the you have the lot of silting in these lakes from the surrounding areas, as well as we have the retreating the ice also. You can say the retreating of the glaciers.
Of course, yes.
So we don't have the more depleting. So we don't have the more source of the water. Less will be the glacial outmelt, and more will be the evaporation. So slowly the water will be evaporated out, and the diameter of the lake will shrink out.
After having had our fill of Leh town, we embarked on the one-day journey to Pangong So Lake. There was hard driving to be done through the most amazing landscape. The sheer scale and sweep of the mountains is awesome. Leaving behind civilization, as it were, we were to enter the land of the unknown. The valleys are broad, brown and orange. In fact, all the hues in terms of color. But for miles and miles, there was not a soul to be seen in this moonscape. Through all this, we sat rigid and immobile, while our driver, whistling all the way just to ease his tense moments, went on driving up the moist ribbon strip road, taking sharp curves and bends. The road clung to the mountain, winding around it like a thread around a top, moving steeply up towards the peak. The higher we went, the narrower it got, losing its smooth, tanned gloss. Snowy peaks appeared to be at arm's length, while enormous glaciers, nearly a meter thick, lay sprawled like lazy white giants on the slopes. Suspended between heaven and earth on many occasions as we inched along, now very slowly, in our endeavor to gain Changla Pass, 18,000 feet above sea level, one of the highest passes in the world. At last, we are on top of Changla Pass. We all clambered out after 6 hours of immobility with some really tense moments into the bitterly cold wind blowing in erratic gusts. A stone post declared its height. The forbidding white-capped mountains confirmed it, and fluttering colored flags hanging in the sky, mesmerizing it. The canvas before us was a study in black, brown and white, with not a blade of grass or a flower to add a dash of color.
We are on way to Pangong, Asia's largest lake, scaling and negotiating Changla Pass, 18,000 feet above sea level. as we were traversing the huge, endless desert from Zojala onwards, one could never expect rewards that came on way from Leh to this place. Mountains and mountains, lovely and grand sights, and now God's own grandeur before us, the glacier, and we expect a greater reward inside Pangong Lake.
Through the pass we descended, losing height quickly until we reached the bottom of Tangste Valley. An hour later, we emerged on the shores of paradise, Pangong Lake.
Here, at long last, we have a magnificent view of the grand Pangong Lake. We have been through mountains, through deserts, but the journey from Leh onwards has been breathtakingly beautiful. Through constantly changing landscape, mountainscape, through constantly changing scenes and sights, and through the mighty Changla Pass, we have at long last reached our destination, the Pangong Lake, which is sublimity itself, bewitching charm, God's own grandeur. Through the mountains, the great Urdu poet was ringing in my mind, Mir taki mir, ahista se chal, miyani kohsar, har sang dukaan shisha gar hai. Walk very slow through the mountains, because every rock looks like a glass maker's shop.
Pangong Lake, the world's highest brackish water lake, lies like a broad silky blue and green ribbon, placidly wafting upon the wind, which caused shimmers of dappled sunshine to rain down in golden showers. Serene and secure in its mountain citadel, the lake glowed with ethereal beauty.
That is a gorgeous view of the magnificent Pangong Lake. When I caught the first glimpse of this immense stretch of water, serenity itself, bliss itself, agar firdaus bar ruye zameen ast, hameen ast, if paradise were brought down on the earth, then perhaps this is the place, this is the spot where paradise itself has descended from above. When I caught the first glimpse, I was reminded of Thomas More, and now I feel almost impelled to repeat Thomas More's lines, "Oh, bring the atheist here, and he will never return atheist." You have God's own grandeur, His beauty, His bliss, His grace. Everything has been quintessentially captured in this serene, absolutely sky blue, immense stretch of water.
A translucent sapphire of clear intense blue at mid-depth. It altered to pale bluish green at the edges. Not a leaf sullied its surroundings. No weeds intruded into the water, and not an insect disturbed its shores.
Reason for that is the saline water does not facilitate growth of almost every plant, and whatever plants are growing outside it, as soon as they move into it or are forced into it, they almost immediately die up. That is why you find that it is almost like a transparent lake. You don't find any normal vegetation in it. However, if you try to analyze water in terms of sampling using microbial methods for analysis, you will find many different microbes, like you may find bacteria, you may find algae, you may find fungi growing in there, but not any major plant will be seen because of the condition of the water there.
The mountains cupping it lent their hues to the lake's crystal waters as well, some of them showing the cruel scars left by glaciers. Behind us were the towering heights, stark brown and black rock, crowned by glinting snow caps. The region of Tsumathang on the other edge of lake, after driving some 30 kilometers in the Indian territory along the lake, lie the beautiful wonders of natural geysers. These geysers have given the landscape a surrealistic look because of some mineral deposits. These geysers are said to have a cure for many skin and orthopedic problems. Accordingly, many people come here for the same. The plateau exhibits varying moods, vast and barren, yet idyllic for some bird species, especially for the endangered black-necked cranes.
The habit of the bird also varies. There are some birds which are dependent upon terrestrial plants, that means which are found outside water bodies. But there are certain birds who depend upon whatever is available in aquatic habitats. The birds that are found in the vicinity of this lake actually are feeding on whatever the saline plants or saline plant material is available for their consumption. You will find those birds only surviving in the vicinity of such lakes. However, if you try to migrate those birds in the vicinity of normal habitats, you will find them try to look for only those areas where they can find any saline vegetation. That is why you find whatever birds are there, they are normally not found in the vicinity of other lakes. That is one reason, that fundamental. Second is that these birds tend to feed not only on saline vegetation, but sometimes also feed upon normal vegetation. That is why you find them sometimes feeding on whatever aquatic vegetation is available, sometimes feeding on vegetation outside the aquatic habitats also.
This water goes on changing colors. They say change is the law of the universe. And if you have to see a glimpse of how this law of change operates in the universe, come and look at these waters and see how they go on changing colors from moment to moment. And every change is for the better. Every change is more magnificent than its predecessor.
Down the lake, a few thousand Changpa nomadic people graze their sheep and yaks in the lush pastures during summer. As the fall of the year approaches, they harvest whatever little bit grows and start to move down, as it is next to impossible to stay there during winter.
See, in Ladakh as a whole, predominantly wheat and barley is grown, because wheat and barley is a plant which survives under cold conditions also. You sometimes see that they try to cultivate rice, a tropical plant. It has not been successful. And what they do is they try to cultivate a plant which actually matures in a very short duration.
The trip back to Leh passed in a flash. Our mind, a kaleidoscope of images of unforgettable beauty.